Hi, I am Tavish Carduff here with
Quan, Tracy.
representing Ourrawmaterial for Conflict Week.
Yes.
A lot of breathing in Conflict Week. The question for Conflict Week.
It's what decision is affecting you right now? You can leave that in our comment section. We can catch us on our YouTube channel, Our Raw Material. Website is ourrawmaterial.com. And Instagram is also Our Raw Material. Thanks for joining us.
We'll be right back.
Hi. How are you today, Tavish?
I'm pretty good.
Right.
Working on finding my center in the middle of conflict.
Yes, it can be quite a challenge with Conflict Week. There's a lot of breathing that we have to do. But if we recognize what we value from last week and what our ideals we're playing around with, then doesn't mean we won't still have conflict. But
we'll still have conflict.
Yes.
Conflict exists.
Yes.
Even before, without going into detail, before this recording, we had several things go wrong. Break, be in the way, timing, and neither one of us threw in the towel.
No.
Pretty proud of us. Normally, this duo would have been like, see you tomorrow.
No, we didn't. No, something about wanting to record today that I guess found my center. That it's like, okay, let's just keep rolling. The show must go on, kind of a thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had placed a value around what we're doing. We had our intentions, and conflict wasn't really going to trip us up.
Mm-mm. And the driving was even slow. Some of it just, and I just breathed through some of that too. So there we go.
Right now it's a blank slate, so conflict is wide open. I thought we'd start by talking about just the state of the world right now, because conflict itself is everywhere we look right now.
Yes. And even made up conflict, stuff that's going on in. Are they really going into Russia going into Ukraine, or are they making up that they're going into Ukraine,
or China and Russia's alliance right now?
Okay.
What does that look like as it plays out in the world, and if their intentions are somehow against the U.S., what does that look like? Conflict. I mean, we are ripe with conflict at every turn. I mean, every perspective you can look from, you can see conflict boiling up, bubbling up, as each of our raw material, the things that trigger us and the things that bother us, come to the surface, and we jockey for position with the people around us. Whose value, whose freedom, whose liberty gets the right of way
and
right now.
And it's a physical week. So we're looking at wholeness, week 12. This is week 8. And then ignorance. And how much conflict comes out of just your own self-ignorance, or projecting that you think you know something about someone. That's incorrect.
True.
When you think about the world, what do you see shaping out of it? Where do you...
Well, let's just talk about conflict itself rather
right.
than go to the space where we've created something from it.
Okay.
Let's just look at the identification itself. Race, religion, education, mask or no mask, vaccine or no vaccine, travel or don't travel, invite everybody over or don't.
I mean, even going to a concert, you have to show that you've gotten vaccinated. I mean, different aspects of conflict that can cause anxiety, even of, going out of your door, out of your home, and being concerned about what is everyone else doing or not doing regarding their health. I mean, and
really having a strong opinion about what everyone else should be doing. And each of us, I can assure each of us that we've all come to our own conclusions based on the research that we've done and what our perception of reality is. And that's where it gets sticky, because we each feel like our version is the right one. I certainly do. I've known you long enough to know that you do. But that's an ego construct and an ego held belief. So the flip side is if I am not right, let me at least be open to hearing what the other perspectives are, because there's always the possibility that we're not, as much as we feel like we are correct. So learning why another person does what they do allows us to untangle that conflict, because as soon as we can see motivation, as soon as there's something that we can relate to or connect to, the conflict dissipates. We start to breathe. We start to understand rather than be ready to fight.
Yes.
So many issues in the world right now, and so many people looking for footing and looking for a voice and looking to be treated in a certain way. And from a just a very vanilla outlook on it. This morning on CBS Sunday Morning, they had a little segment on left-handed people. And they pointed out all the ways that left is used as a negative thing, even down to you swipe left if you're rejecting someone. Like there's so many ways that left is used offensively and woven into, you know, things that I would, as a right-handed person, would never have landed on me. They never would have occurred to me. So just the conflict, you know, there's also then these ideas that they're more creative or, you know, there's a lot of back and forth about what left-handed qualities are, but you could really carve out a very negative picture of a left-handed person. I think the word itself comes from something like failure or weakness. Places that we all feel put upon and different have actually occurred throughout society for a really long time as we've built this ego, as we've separated. You know, we've mentioned this every week, how individualized we have become. So of course we are going to come up against conflicting ideas. And of course we're going to encounter someone, even our friends, even the people that we love, that aren't going to see things the same way that we do. And it's what we do with that opportunity in front of us that really shapes how it looks going forward.
And is it basic that as we solve our own internal conflicts, that it would also solve the conflicts or help the ones that are out in the world as well?
I would have to think on that. That's a big question, but probably they're related. Just as we discover that every single thing seems to be rooted to all the other things about us, it would stand to reason at this point that yes, that's true. But I think we need to identify what conflicts are, you know, what types we have within ourself.
Yes.
Within ourself and another person or group of people, and then just society at large. So identifying which conflict you're focusing on, because I mean, I can imagine a situation where it's actually all three at once.
yeah, I can too. But I think that what's helpful about looking at it internal, self and self, or the role we play versus how we actually may feel about something. How does that affect ourselves in relationships? How does that affect our work environment, society? And I think just pausing enough to say, why am I doing this? Or why is this important? And because sometimes we may decide to avoid conflict, that it's just not important to put a perspective out there. You know, sometimes you just say, no, I'd rather just go along, get along.
And that goes back to the physical. If just going along to get along is your objective, you're going to be pulling some of that conflict into your physical body, because that's not the way we're supposed to do it. We're supposed to have the conflicts that are important to us.
Because remember, this connects to ignorance and wholeness. I mean, these weeks and this week of conflict comes after the values and ideals. So in an ideal world, you would know what would really matter to you, so you would stand up or you would speak up and risk having the disagreement so it wouldn't stay in your body.
Right.
Yeah.
If you stand up for the things that mean something to you, and figure out a way to stand up for them that isn't adding fuel to a fire, if you can, that is making your point known and standing your ground because it's important to you, not just to stand your ground. You know, we separate into types of people that are combative or confrontational, and then people that shy away. At the same time, we each need to take responsibility for just arguing because it's habit, and same as staying quiet because it's habit. We are the only ones who are going to consider ourselves and the things that are important to us, and stand up for our own thoughts, values, and things that matter. So, without being our own advocate, which means knowing when to step up and when to back off. That's an important place to be, but the absence of conflict or win at all costs, those are two ends of the spectrum that get us nowhere. They just perpetuate the conflict.
I sometimes, with conflict, I have a value of wanting to be heard versus needing to be right. So that's one of the kind of the balancing points or an internal questioning that I do within myself around how, when, and even do I speak up.
And I would say, the week right before values and ideals, really important for conflict week, because when a conflict happens, we're emotionally stirred. And when we get emotionally stirred, it's just like anything else. Whatever we've been training ourselves to do in response is what's going to happen. So if our habit is to just go off and scream and yell, that's probably what's going to happen. If we're practiced at knowing what's important and what do we actually want to gain from the situation, not how can we just be heard. That's the difference between yelling and waiting for a moment where someone can actually hear you.
True.
A lot of breath around that. But when your values are the first thing that kick in because you're clear enough on them that they're present, you've written them down, you've seen them recently, and you know what they look like, then you can attach to those pretty easily and decide, okay, I don't need to go off on this person that I don't even know what their day was like and I don't know what happened to them, and they're just about to get all of my frustration because I don't know why. So for me, losing it on people that are just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and as an Aries rising person, I've had my share of that in my younger life, but that's not in my values anymore, and it's so not in my values that I don't do it. There's something that just stops me. The feeling still comes. I want to.
Yes,
I want to. I want to have a moment and say a lot of things that will scare you. I want to have that moment. But I'm not going to have that moment with anyone because it is not valuable. Why do I want to create fear? Why do I want to put any more conflict into the world than there already is? Because as we started with, everywhere I look, there is conflict. Oh, breathing and breathing.
So you've mentioned that you've changed your style of how you've done conflict as you've gotten a little bit older. So is it older? Is it also the Ourrawmaterial work? And flesh that out a little bit more so we can have.
I would say it's a little bit of both of those. Okay. I mean, our age brings wisdom.
Hopefully.
And in an ideal world, age brings wisdom.
Yeah.
And we learn from our mistakes. Again, ideal. But having this practice and having an intention towards approaching conflict in the best way possible, and wanting an outcome, knowing what shape or form I want it to take, so that when I'm making my points, they have the chance to land effectively. I can blow up a situation like the best of them. I can slam doors. I can shut a person out. I can just rain all over something and escalate a conflict. But a direct intention to not do that, and to only participate in conflicts where I feel like there's an opportunity to shift a perspective or to broaden the ideas that are present, I generally don't engage. I generally treat that as an ignorance situation where nothing I do is going to make it better. And that's when I go down into the root system and I muster up some grounded heart energy and I really push that energy out to the person that I'm struggling with, or to the group that I'm struggling with, or to the idea that I'm struggling with, so that the universe kind of takes over, and I can go back to looking at values. And there have been a lot of conflicts that I've had to, especially recently, learn to live with. They're right up against me all day, every day. And the one that I would say, one of the biggest ones that we deal with in our life, and it's not on our list, it just came to me, but death. This idea that at some point we won't be here, and that the people that we love won't be here, possibly our children, possibly our parents, or friends and family. And there might be a moment where we have loss, and that internal conflict where our fear can take over when we worry about something happening and how we will be without the support of the people that we love. I think that's a really good space to practice living with conflict, because that's just a truth.
And the truth, the internal conflict, and then also how do you not solve conflict, but how do you resolve conflict? The word I'm hearing is you're more gracious, I think, about how you exhibit your conflict. And again, that's an ideal world. You can't, and that's why I like conflict also connected to wholeness, that you resist the temptation to judge if you do lose your temper, or if you do say something that you may regret later. Because if you judge and carry more guilt, that's just more internal conflict that can snowball the situation as well. So it's important even in conflict to have compassion. That's where I guess
especially for yourself.
Yep.
And just those types of things that you just mentioned, when you find yourself in that space, breathing and looking at what are the roots of it. Where's the tangle? Where did you get triggered? And really kind of tying those emotions to your own feelings. Letting your own ignorance of why things bother you versus what bothers you.
Yes.
Because we react to what bothers us. But looking at the reason why it bothers you helps you really understand how it triggers you, rather than just an immediate need to have it out of your way. Exactly.
And the more that I found that the more that I do Ourrawmaterial, and even if I'm not using the language, just practicing it, there's less baggage, less that's stored in the body, and then there's less that's passed on, not only in my environment, but onto my children. Onto my child, and just
your ideal children,
my ideal,
world.
Yeah,
all the children in the world,
and then it I don't know, and it has helped even in my astrological practice as well, because there can be conflict in a session or disagreement, and the first thing that is done is let's flesh out where this is coming from, instead of you're right, I'm wrong, or vice versa. And
I'm hearing an echo in what you're saying that goes back to some of my healing school. But there was a prayer that our teacher used to do, and in it the phrase, for the children and the children's children. And when we think about conflict in terms of our actions affecting the children and the children's children, that's a lot of space to resonate. And it gives us a really good platform to realize, like, well, what do we actually want to echo out there? What do we want to put out there? And so it's a fun space for me now. I enjoy conflict a lot more than I used to, and that's strange to say. But I used to it made me angry. Conflict made me angry and upset and bothered. And now I look at it as opportunities for transformation.
I know one of the things that you've helped me with too is with Ourrawmaterial is to see part of the humor in conflict. To be able, and not that you're in the middle of an argument and you burst out laughing, but upon reflection.
But sometimes you can.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it happens like that. You're so mad, and then it just blows up because the mad is so ego-filled and ridiculous.
Because I know even with the tripod and all of what went wrong before we started recording, I know 2-3 years ago I'd have been huffing, oh God, I gotta go do this. And it was just like, okay.
Thanks for that.
It's just a part of
teamwork.
It's just part of the world. So even in conflict, I like to meditate or contemplate on beings that represent peacefulness to me, or a certain calmness or stabilizing of my own energy. I call it the invisible entourage. That's just the way that helps me speak up, to ask some questions, again, in an ideal world, and realize, oh, I was ignorant about that. Oh, I didn't know you saw it that way. And then you can
just breathe.
Yep. Breathe. Yep. So it's been.
As you head into conflict week, take your breathing skill set with you. Every type of breathing you can come up with, in every pace, just try it all out and see how it helps you clear out some of these thoughts so that you are actually effective in getting your conflict resolved. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get it resolved, if it's one that you just need to learn to live with, breathe right up next to that thing. Mm-hmm. And recognize what it's doing to teach you something. What do we have up next week? Intention?
Yes. Week 9.
We'll see you for that.
Thanks for joining us.